Diary. Life is a funny thing. One day you can be full of energy, strong and free, and all it takes is one moment to destroy all of that, to bring you down and break you into little pieces. Let me start from the beginning, my darling diary, so you can actually understand what I am trying to say. It was one of those beautiful days, and by beautiful, I mean everything felt perfect. The sun was out, but it wasn't too hot nor too cold. It was just right. The air was luxurious with just the right amount of moisture and an abundance of rich, clean oxygen. In other words, my darling diary, it was a lovely spring day. And I, Anastasia, was feeling good. I felt strong surges of energy, and so I started to run. To be honest, it actually felt as if I were flying. I felt the wind through my hair, and I could almost feel the wings on my back. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a very ugly creature. Well, it was actually a human, the ugliest creature of all. But what made it especially ugly was that its face looked like a little hood rat. The kind you would find running around a sewer. This human hood rat started to run alongside of me. Why, I don't know, but perhaps it needed to prove a point. The hood rat human could no longer keep up the pace and suddenly collapsed right in front of me, and at that instant caused me to trip. I went flying through the air and hit the ground so hard. It was a weird kind of slow motion. I felt my arms lurch out and my jaw crash on the ground, followed by my head smashing into the floor. As far as I knew, this was the end. I am down now. How can I possibly get up? As I lay on the ground, the blood started gushing. The teeth in my mouth were no longer attached. I could feel it rolling around in my tongue. I spat my teeth out. There was so much blood, I couldn't quite figure out what was bleeding. Was it my head? My ear? Was the blood coming from my mouth? I don't know. But all I knew was that right now I had absolutely no energy, and I was going to stay down. Soon I was nothing more than an obstacle on the path. Humans started to come out of their village, and they needed to pass, but I was blocking it, and no one wanted to come near me as I was nothing more than a pool of blood. It wasn't just that, but in the eyes of a human, I am hideously ugly and was nothing more than a savage beast. Humans fear what they cannot understand. As I lay there, I actually started to feel comfortable in the position that I currently was in. I knew that if I were to get up, there was going to be some kind of excruciating pain, and I was in no mood to feel that. If I'm down, everything must stop. The world must stop. I was not going to move. Not only was I not going to move, but nobody else was allowed to move. Everyone must stop what they're doing, and everyone must freeze in time. Do you know, my darling diary? The funny thing is that no one could move because I was an obstacle. And I think humans were too afraid to come near me in case I bit them. Stopping time is a very powerful feeling. It's like in the fairy tales, where you have magical powers, and by the power of your mind, you're able to stop everything and everyone in their tracks. I don't know how long I laid on the road like that. Must have been hours. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw the rat-faced human slowly get up and walk off to the side. Suddenly, I was filled with rage. That ugly little hood rat doesn't even deserve to exist. I slowly got up. To my amazement, I felt no pain. But sometimes you're so full of adrenaline that you feel nothing. Or maybe if you didn't even have adrenaline, maybe you're already numb, and therefore you will never feel anything to begin with. I growled at the rat-faced human. It started scurrying away, obviously terrified at this point. My growls got louder and louder. Now I was overcome with anger for a few reasons. First, this ugly rat-faced human that caused me to trip was free from all bruises and pain. Perhaps if it had broken its arm, some legs, a few teeth, I would have felt better. But it just stood before me, perfectly intact, free from pain, at least for now. I was so filled with rage that my head started to throb. Actually, not just my head. My entire body was flooded with pain, and I had the most uncomfortable spasm in my neck that caused me to rock back and forth like some kind of insane person. Or maybe I was already insane, so it doesn't really make a difference. I don't know anymore. But I knew right now that there was a cure for my pain. I grabbed a hold of that rat-faced human and started punching its face with a few good blows. Do you know, my darling diary, if you think about it, there are many ways you can kill a human being. You can poison them. You can stab them to death. You can boil them. You can starve them. So as you can see, I had a lot of choices. Some say a woman cannot decide. Maybe that is true, especially when you have lots of choices. I finally decided to take on the challenge of punching this human to death. I grabbed it by the neck and kept punching it and punching it. I couldn't stop. I was just feeling so good. I was very focused. I don't know how many punches landed on its face, but I must have smashed its skull because eventually it just lay limp on the floor in its own pool of blood. I now felt another sensation come over me, and I believe that sensation is called triumph. I felt a sense of accomplishment. It made me feel good. I, Anastasia, am great. I do not recommend punching someone to death, as there are serious consequences. In doing so, I had broken all my fingers. Fingers were twisted and bleeding, but at least these hands served a purpose. It cured me of my pain. Imagine that. I felt quite proud of myself. I, Anastasia, I'm so in love with myself. I deserve a medal. Another broken tooth in my mouth. Each time I spit one out, there was always another one on my tongue. I slowly walked away. By now things started to get very cold and I was shivering. I thought it was spring. The blood was still gushing down from my head and some of it trickled into my mouth. Oh my, Anastasia, what rich blood you must have, I said to myself. Even if my outsides are hideous and ugly, it doesn't really matter, as I have rich blood flowing through my veins. By now I had walked to a grassy patch into the forest, shaking and trembling so much. Is this death? Or is this just the beginning of another day? Can you tell me, my darling diary? Tell me. Anastasia.
Mag dir Gott ein Mann bescheren, wohl mit 1000 Hochversehn. Wenn wir zwei zusammen